A very good afternoon. Welcome to the first episode of the LFS Transfer Show with me, Caoimhan Ferris, this Friday afternoon as we round up all of the week's transfer headlines. Who is going where? What are the big talking points? And is there big money on the line for Europe's biggest clubs? We will find out who is going where and give you the very latest on the big transfer stories from this week. And believe me, it might just be a mini window for the first 10 days of this month, but it has not been mini in terms of the many deals and talks and negotiations that are ongoing. So we have a busy show for you today, and we can start. Believe me, we're off to a busy start. Today's already been busy with the news and the stuff that's been coming in, but we have some breaking news to bring you this afternoon, and that's going to be exciting. And this is the breaking news that we can bring you this afternoon in the first episode of the LFS Transfer Show. And that is Arsenal. These are the reports coming in today. Multiple reports that Arsenal are now advancing in negotiations for Benjamin Šeško with RB Leipzig after initial talks were conducted last week. Now, discussions are reportedly underway and proceeding well between all parties, the player and both clubs. But no agreement is in place, and it is not expected to an agreement to be in place this weekend. That is not expected, but talks are advancing. So some promising signs that Arsenal could be getting their striker after all. Benjamin Šeško, that is the name that is in Arsenal's minds, and they're in talks, advancing talks with RB Leipzig. That is the big breaking news this afternoon. That story broke around about 45 minutes ago to an hour ago for you. And our big story of the day that gets us going. But we've got so much to talk about. Deals that have already been done, deals that are in the process of being done, and some maybe hints of who is going where. So we have a lot to get through, and we're going to start this week's headlines. Of course, it's been a busy week in the transfer world and news. Of course, the window opened on Sunday, just past the 1st of June. It opens for 10 days until Tuesday coming, the 10th of June. Then it will close again due to, of course, the Club World Cup starting on the 15th. The transfer window will then reopen from the 16th of June, and that will be until the end of August. So a little mini window to start this month, a couple of days break in between, and then we will have the full transfer window from the 16th of June. We're going to start this afternoon with this week's headlines with a done deal, and probably the deal that was done this time last week, and Liverpool making moves early in the transfer window this year, and they've already made that signing of Jeremy Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen. Now, the full details of this: they triggered the £29.5 million release clause, did Liverpool. They agreed to pay the fee in 3 instalments over a short period of time. A 6-year contract for Jeremy Frimpong keeps him at Liverpool till 2031, and he had 5 goals, 12 assists in 48 games last season. Of course, the right back was announced the day that Trent Alexander-Arnold was announced that he would be joining Real Madrid early ahead of their Club World Cup campaign that starts this Sunday. Or next Sunday, sorry, the 15th of June. Now, that is a interesting move from Liverpool to announce Jeremy Frimpong signing the day that Trent Alexander-Arnold is confirmed to be moving early to Real Madrid. And of course, they got £10 million at Liverpool from Real Madrid, which will of course go towards paying off Jeremy Frimpong there. And that is a good move for Liverpool, a position they needed to strengthen in. Conor Bradley at the moment would have been the only right back at the football club, but Jeremy Frimpong coming in is a massively positive move for Liverpool, and they got the job done early before the transfer window even opened, because it didn't open until Sunday. This deal was done last Friday, the 30th of May, so there were still 2 days to wait until the window opened. But Jeremy Frimpong is 100% certainly a Liverpool player, and that was their first signing of the summer. Speaking of signings of the summer, Manchester United have agreed a deal to sign Matheus Cunha from Wolves. The 26-year-old will join on a 5-year deal with an option for a further year. They met the £62.5 million release clause, Manchester United, that Wolves had put in place when Cunha signed a new deal in January. Of course, there was a little worry whether he would go for a degraded fee or a lower fee than Wolves thought were acceptable. Then they renewed a new contract with Matheus Cunha in January with this release clause in it, and Manchester United met that release clause, and that will be a club record sale for Wolves in the club's history. And the payments from Manchester United for the £62.5 million are expected to be paid over 2 years. Now, of course, Manchester United, we know, don't have the funds to pay £62.5 million up front, but it will be paid over 2 years. So whether it will be in multiple instalments over 2 years or whether it will be in two big payments, we don't know the specifics on that, but what we do know is that the payments will be made over 2 years. But I mean, there's no doubting Matheus Cunha's ability from Wolves, and an incredible season for a side that really struggled in the Premier League in Wolves last season, but he was their shining light, really. Matheus Cunha, 17 goals, 6 assists for Wolves last season, one of the top performing attacking players in the Premier League, and he will take up the number 10 role. Maybe a bit of competition between him and Bruno Fernandes about who will be playing where. But if you would have to say, both of them would have to find a way to fit into that Man United starting 11. And Ruben Amorim already started the recruitment process. Back to Liverpool, but this time an outgoing from Liverpool, and Brentford have signed Liverpool keeper Caoimhan Kelleher. Of course, Kelleher has been talked about being a number one for many Premier League clubs for the last 2 years or so, since Alisson has obviously been the number one for a long time. But with a couple of injuries, Kelleher's got his chances in cup competitions, and when Alisson's been injured, and he's now got that first-time move. A £12.5 million fee paid by Brentford initially. There's performance-related add-ons in the deal that could take the fee to over £18 million for Liverpool, and Kelleher moving on. The Brentford were initially actually interested previously in Caoimhan Kelleher back in 2023, but Liverpool weren't open to sell at that point, and now with Georgi Marmadashvili coming in this summer for Liverpool and Alisson, along with other goalkeeping options opening up for Liverpool, it looks like it was always going to be the way that Caoimhan Kelleher would be making a move on this summer. And Brentford seemed to be the hot target coming into this window because, of course, Mark Flecken, the Brentford keeper from this Premier League season just gone past, he was the main starting keeper, and he's made that move to Bayer Leverkusen. So a little bit of dominoes falling. Flecken off to Leverkusen, and then Kelleher coming in from Liverpool to Brentford to replace Mark Flecken, and of course he will be the number one goalkeeper at Brentford. So they made that move this summer. Interesting news for Kelleher's boyhood club, who he joined Liverpool from all those years ago, Ringmahon Rangers from Munster, province of Munster in Ireland, are set to make up to £3 million from this, from a sell-on clause that they put in Kelleher's contract when he did make that move to Liverpool all those years ago, which will be a once-in-a-generation type of amount of money for a club like Ringmahon Rangers, and it's good to see some smaller clubs and some clubs that we've maybe never heard of, but they're doing well, producing some great talents, and Kelleher certainly one of them. There's a lot of Liverpool talk in the transfers because, as I said, they're moving quickly. They're moving early, Liverpool, with their moves, and two players that have been very, very heavily linked with moves to Liverpool this summer, and we will keep an eye on these. There's no added update on these, but this is the latest that we have from Florian Wirtz and Milos Kerkez. Florian Wirtz, of course, could be joining from Bayer Leverkusen. Milos Kerkez, a Bournemouth player at the moment. We'll start with Wirtz. The Wirtz, latest updates from him. He only wants to join Liverpool. That is the latest we've heard from the players' point of view. The clubs are in talks to agree a fee for the player. Leverkusen value Florian Wirtz at around £120 million. That is the touted fee that Leverkusen expect for the player. But Liverpool's latest offer that was rejected, their second bid that was rejected, was £110 million. So we wait to see a bit of compromise there, but it is very much expected that a compromise will be found and that the player will be going to Liverpool. According to reports, personal terms will not be a problem, and on some aspects a lot of those agreements have already been put in place verbally, the personal terms, but nothing in writing yet. Some interesting news on that though. If Florian Wirtz does move to Liverpool for what Bayer Leverkusen value the player at 120 million, it would break the British record transfer fee that currently sits at 115 million pounds, and that was from Moises Caicedo to Chelsea back in 2023. So if Florian Wirtz does go for the asking price from Leverkusen to Liverpool, it will be a British transfer record for a British transfer fee in history. To Milos Kerkez, talking about Liverpool again, Florian Wirtz very much in a similar position with Kerkez. They're very hotly linked. They're very close to maybe joining Liverpool, but there's still agreement between the clubs is yet to be found. Bournemouth value Milos Kerkez at around £40 million. Liverpool haven't made a formal bid yet for the player. They have had some unofficial negotiations between the two clubs, but nothing concrete in terms of an official formal bid from Liverpool. So nothing in terms of real money has been put up there by Liverpool yet, but we do expect that bid to come early next week, around about Monday, Tuesday time is what the expected timeline is from the reports that are out there. About £40 million from Milos Kerkez, and the player, he's keen on the move, Kerkez, and there's personal terms shouldn't be a problem between the club and the player. And really, there is some links there, of course. Richard Hughes, who is the current sporting director at Liverpool, was the sporting director at Bournemouth before joining Liverpool last summer. So Richard Hughes, very closely linked, and of course was the man who brought Milos Kerkez into Bournemouth 2 years ago. So there will be a lot of close links there. So I expect that deal to be done very closely. The latest that we have on those two stories, just from today, is that patience is the key word. That there is still a lot to be done, but on both deals it looks very positive for Liverpool. So it looks like Liverpool are moving closer to signing some more players to join Jeremy Frimpong, who's already joined the squad. We'll leave Liverpool alone for a little bit because they've got a lot of work to do and they've done a lot so far. But Manchester City are on the move. They've been making a couple of moves over the last number of days. This one is an interesting one. Ryan Cherky, of course, the player has seemingly revealed in an interview yesterday evening that a deal is close with Manchester City, but reports suggest that City's first offer was around £19 million for Ryan Cherky, but Lyon want around £34 million for the French midfielder. So there's a little bit of gap to find there between the two clubs, but I would say from what we saw from Ryan Cherky last night for France in that Nations League semi-final, his performance quite incredible despite the team's underperformance overall in the game for France that saw them go out of the Nations League at the semi-final stage. But Ryan Cherky certainly a headline maker from that game, and I expect there to be a deal in place very shortly between the two clubs. But City's first offer for around £19 million was rejected by Lyon, and they want around £34 million to the French club. Speaking of Manchester City, they have got two deals over the line in the last 24 to 48 hours. The first one is for Tijjani Reinders. So City are were expected to pay 55 to 57 million euros for Tijjani Reinders, of course, but that could rise to over 70 million euros, including add-ons. So the deal has been agreed for him. Ryan Ait-Nouri is the other player that Manchester City have been pipping around, and it was expected Manchester City to cost around £50 million for Ait-Nouri, but reports have suggested that a deal was agreed at around £34 million for the Wolves wing-back. So a little bit of wriggle room there for City, and some good negotiating got the deal down a couple of £1 million. But both players, deal agreed with the clubs of those players, and they're set to have their medicals at Manchester City this weekend, according to reports, but they are revealed before they are revealed, of course, as new Manchester City players early next week. So those two deals in place, Tijjani Reinders and Ryan Ait-Nouri, looking like they're going to be new Manchester City players, and Ryan Cherky is still in the balance, but we expect that to be getting over the line very shortly. Moving on from Manchester City, who have been busy, and we'll keep an eye on their busy schedule and their busy transfer moves. But we move to Manchester United now, who, of course, as I said, have already made the move for Matheus Cunha. Got that deal over the line. They're trying to make another attacker move, and this time for Bryan Mbeumo. Now, they submitted a bid yesterday, Manchester United, for Bryan Mbeumo, the Brentford centre forward, but that opening bid of around £55 million in terms of an overall package was rejected by Brentford yesterday. The offer was a guaranteed £45 million up front, plus £10 million in add-ons and bonuses alongside that. Brentford rejected the offer and they value Mbeumo in excess of £60 million. That's where Brentford see it. Now, the latest, a little bit of breaking news that we can bring you from this afternoon on that deal, is what we can say is that the latest is that Man United are ready for a second proposal. So they're ready to improve their bid that was rejected yesterday. The clubs are in direct negotiations today. Brandon Mbeumo is clear on his stance. He wants to move to Manchester United. That is clear from his point of view, but it's just now the two clubs having to agree. But I don't think that Man United are too far off an agreement. If the £55 million package in total was rejected, Brentford around £60 million or more is what they're expecting. So around 60-65 million we do expect to be the full package if Brentford are to accept a bid from Man United. So they're not too far away from maybe getting that deal over the line. And if the player wants it, I'm sure Man United will find a way to get that deal done. But that was a bit of breaking news that dropped a little earlier this afternoon. We have so much more still to get through. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll talk about Chelsea, we'll talk about Bruno Fernandes in a moment. We'll also talk about some new contracts and a bit of European news as well. So there's a good bit still to get through here this afternoon on the LFS Transfer Show. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. For you. Reminder of that breaking news that we brought you a little earlier at the start of the programme. At the start of the show, that was the breaking news that Arsenal are in. Arsenal's talks with RB Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko are advancing. There's no agreement yet, or expected to be an agreement this weekend, but they are advancing. So interesting news that Benjamin Sesko is looking likely, from Arsenal's point of view, to be their top target and one they want to chase for that centre-forward position, a position they've been desperate to get done for a good while. Arsenal is something they've been desperate to find out. But you can certainly say that they might be going in the right direction. But a lot still needs to be done at the moment. Someone in the chat says, what is with KDB? Well, Kevin De Bruyne, of course, his contract is up at Manchester City. That will finish at the end of the season. There's no new contract on the table, but there was some interest from Italy. I think it was Napoli that were interested in signing Kevin De Bruyne, of course, the Serie A champions now. So we don't know the full details, but there was some interest from Napoli and other clubs around the world. But of course, it's Kevin De Bruyne. If he's going to be, there's going to be no shortage of people wanting and clubs wanting to get involved in signing such a very good player, and we'll see what comes of that. Boss says, what is this stream for? We'll update you on all it is transfers, because the transfer window is open. This little mini window that we have in place at the moment, and just to bring you up to date with everything that's happening from around the world of the transfers, and you can have your say what you think's going to happen from around the world of transfers. So do get involved in the chat if you haven't done so already. That would be greatly appreciated. But we're going to move on to Chelsea now. Some Chelsea news about incomings and outgoings. Of course, they did sign Liam Delap as their new centre forward from Ipswich Town, and the news today around Liam Delap is that he won't be going to the under-21s Euros with England this summer. He will be staying with his new club Chelsea to go to the Club World Cup, of course, that Chelsea are involved in. So that is what Liam Delap is doing, but he did make that move earlier this week to Chelsea from Ipswich. But one player who won't be playing for Chelsea next season, and that is Jadon Sancho. Chelsea won't make his deal of a loan deal that was initially a loan deal for this season. They won't make it permanent. Now, initially when they agreed to get a loan for Jadon Sancho, Chelsea, earlier this year, they were obligated, had an obligation to buy it as a clause in the contract. So therefore, an obligation to buy is basically when the loan deal ends, you are obliged to pay a certain amount of money to then take the player on permanently. Now, that's not a binding thing that you can't get out of. You can get out of it, and Chelsea are going to. They're not going to exercise that £25 million obligation to sign Jadon Sancho permanently. They will instead pay £5 million as a penalty to Manchester United to get out of that obligation, because they don't feel that Jadon Sancho will be a good decision to make to sign him permanently, and they will not pay that £25 million obligation. They will instead pay a £5 million penalty to Man United to get out of that obligation, and that therefore means that when the loan deal comes to an end for Jadon Sancho, he will then go back to his parent club, Manchester United, at the end of this month. Of course, the end of June will be the end of his loan deal at Chelsea. We will continue with Chelsea for the moment. And some interesting news that come through today, this morning, that we have a bit of interest in. And Chelsea have been offered the chance to sign Mohamed Kudus from West Ham. Now, this is a little bit of an interesting one today. Chelsea are considering whether or not to make Mohamed Kudus a target and then maybe take up this option of kind of signing him this summer. A very good player, of course, at West Ham United, very heavily linked with a couple of moves elsewhere, but Chelsea wasn't one of them. But apparently West Ham have offered Mohamed Kudus to Chelsea, but Chelsea haven't considered whether or not they will want to sign him yet. The discussions of that situation involved West Ham are asking about the availability of Robert Sanchez, the Chelsea goalkeeper. Now, of course, West Ham are interested in bringing in a new number one, a new goalkeeper. Robert Sanchez, of course, has history with Graham Potter, the West Ham head coach, from his time at Brighton. So maybe there's some links there and why Robert Sanchez might have some interest from West Ham. But they have offered up Mohamed Kudus. Now, I'm not saying this is a direct swap deal or anything like that, but they've asked about kind of Robert Sanchez, West Ham, and maybe in the same turn offered up Mohamed Kudus as a possible chance to sign him. But of course they're interested in the deal, West Ham. Chelsea still trying to figure things out. But the Chelsea, interestingly, are interested in a goalkeeper themselves, and that's AC Milan goalkeeper Mike Maignan, who also wants to move to Stamford Bridge. So there could be some movement. If Chelsea get a little bit of a green light on the move for their goalkeeper, then they could probably sell Robert Sanchez and make a move for Mohamed Kudus. So it's kind of a dominoes effect, basically, at this moment. But Chelsea haven't decided whether or not they want to sign Mohamed Kudus, but West Ham are certainly interested in it and certainly want a look at Robert Sanchez at the very least to West Ham, but nothing further from that. That only broke today, so it's very early stages of that whole situation, but that is the interesting one, that there could be a move there. And Chelsea are no shortage of attacking players, certainly wide attacking players, so who knows what could happen there. Speaking of attacking players, Bruno Fernandes, of course, that was a big story today, this week, that he rejected a move to Al Hilal. Now, the Saudi club were desperate and have been desperate to sign a big money signing before their Club World Cup campaign starts on the 15th of June for the Saudi Arabian club. Fernandes, though, confirmed in a press conference before the Portugal game against Germany in the Nations League on Wednesday, that was in a press conference, that he rejected that big move to Al Hilal and that he was not moving from Manchester United and happy to stay at the football club as long as they're happy to have him, in a sense. At the moment, he revealed, of course, in that press conference that he had talks with his head coach, Ruben Amorim, and that his family, his wife and his children, were key to his decision to stay with Manchester United, and that he was not motivated by money and hasn't been motivated by money. Because believe me, Al Hilal were ready to pay quite a lot. They were willing to pay £100 million to Manchester United for the player, and Bruno Fernandes was offered a contract that would treble his wages, which are currently at £250,000 a week. So his wages would be around £750,000 per week if he were to make that move, and the £100 million would be paid to Man United. But neither Man United or Bruno Fernandes want that deal, and Al Hilal seemingly have been snubbed by that whole moment. And it looked like Man United were needing the money, and with Matheus Cunha coming in, there was some maybe rumours that maybe Bruno Fernandes could be moved on and maybe try and use that money to regenerate the squad, but it doesn't seem like that would be the case, and it doesn't seem like that will be any more to come from that. And maybe Bruno Fernandes' interest from other clubs is going to dissipate, and he will stay at Man United, it seems. To more continental news, it does involve an English side and a newly promoted Premier League side in Sunderland, but Borussia Dortmund are confident in signing Jobe Bellingham. Of course, they signed Jude Bellingham from Birmingham City a good number of years ago now, when he was a teenager, brought into Borussia Dortmund, and Borussia Dortmund are in advanced talks with Sunderland to sign his brother, Jobe Bellingham. Bellingham has already said he would be committed to Borussia Dortmund. There was interest from Eintracht Frankfurt and RB Leipzig, both in Germany as well, but Borussia Dortmund seems to have the heart of Job Bellingham. The 19-year-old has a release clause worth around £33.7 million, but there is a gentleman's agreement in place between the Sunderland and Bellingham that if a big club were to come in for the player, that they would allow him to go for a lower fee than the release clause if that were to be the case. So there's a gentleman's agreement in there, but his release clause is 33.7 million, and we'll see what comes of that. But Dortmund are very confident, and they're in advanced talks with Sunderland over that possible move for Job Bellingham. That is our biggest, latest transfer news of the day. We're going to end this afternoon with Gabriel, some contract news from Arsenal that was breaking earlier this afternoon, that Gabriel, the centre-back for Arsenal, the Brazilian centre-back, has signed a new long-term deal that will take him to keep him at the club until 2029. That's a 4-year contract that he has signed, that added to the 2 years that were already left on his previous contract. His previous contract would have run out in 2027, but this new 4-year deal has him staying at the club until at least 2029. The 27-year-old joined from Lille for £27 million back in 2020. He has made over 200 appearances for Arsenal in all competitions, scored 20 goals in that time, which is massive for a centre-back. And Arsenal, of course, had the best defence in terms of goals conceded in the Premier League over the last 2 seasons, and Gabriel, a major part of that. Of course, he missed the vast majority of the end of the season due to that poor injury that saw him out till the end of the campaign. But Gabriel is going nowhere, and Arsenal have one of their best centre-backs, one of the best defenders in the Premier League, tied down for at least another 4 years. Right, before we leave you, that was all the latest headlines that we had from this week's transfers. Of course, there's going to be so much more going on between now and the window closing. We've got little snippets of news coming in all day that the Atalanta head coach, of course, Gianpiero Gasperini, of course, he has been at Atalanta, the Italian, for many a year, and brought them to real cup glory and European champions in the Europa League last season. But he is moving on. He's not moving out of the country. He's staying in Italy, but he is moving on to Roma. He has just been announced as the new Roma head coach. This is big breaking news. I can't get enough of this graphic. Love it. But breaking news that Gianpiero Gasperini has been announced as the new AS Roma head coach on a 3-year deal for Gasperini, of course, after being long-term manager of Atalanta for quite a number of years. But he has made that move. To AS Roma. So not too far away, but staying in Italy, but moving on to arguably the bigger club in that one. BPW says, when are Man United going to get serious in this transfer window? Well, you got to say, making a big move from Mateusz CUNHA with a lot of money on the line there, and then, of course, going in possibly for a second bid, a second proposal is what the information is telling us, for Brian Mbeumo from Brentford. So there is moves happening, and attacking moves, which is an area Manchester United certainly need to impress. They can barely score any enough goals. They've been terrible in front of goal this season, and the season just passed, and it's certainly an area they need to improve, and I certainly think they will improve, and they're certainly making the most of trying to improve at the moment. Right, that is the LFS Transfer Show for this Friday. We won't be back next week because the transfer window will close on the 10th of June. That's Tuesday, so we will have a week off next week, but we'll be back on Friday the 20th of June when the window reopens, and of course we'll have lots of headlines, probably lots of moves, lots of confirmations, but we will keep you up to date with any transfers that take place on our social media, on X, Instagram, TikTok, and here on YouTube as well through our community posts. We'll keep you right up to date with all of the latest transfers from around the world. For now, thank you very much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye bye.